there's other brilliant parts of your business. So like the back end is in my opinion quite solid. Now, how do you find so many tenants? Because I remember when rent to own became like a big thing. Like someone came with a book, and then everyone started rent to own. It was like the flavor of the a couple of years, and so everyone went gangbusters. People were posting ads on Kijiji and whatnot, and then it was what people always consistently say, like the tenant you're looking for is like needle in a haystack. But again, like your deal flow is greater than almost anyone I know personally. Like what is it about your business that attracts tenants on a regular basis? And again, like you're offering them something that people haven't even heard of before, right? I'm sure some of these listeners haven't heard of rent to own before. How did you convince people to do this? Even just start talking to you, or to even land on your website, whatever it is.
That's a really great point. I mean, at the beginning, we did what everybody else did. We advertised on Kijiji, Craigslist, and we were getting a lot of skeptics. And, it was a needle in a haystack experience. And then at some point, after kind of spinning our wheels and, driving all over Ontario to meet people and have face-to-face conversations to let them know that we're sincere about helping them and we have the means and the intentions to do so, there was a lot of face-to-face contact. We would meet at Tim Hortons in, all parts of Ontario. We would go to our corporate jobs, come home, and I remember Neil getting off the GO train and literally jumping in the car to drive for an hour and a half to meet somebody, at a Tim Hortons and talk about whether or not they're a good fit for rent own. And at that point, they were
So you guys hustled. Let's just say that you guys hustled.
Yeah, it was a lot of work to establish that trust and reputation. And when we started having children, or actually our second child, I said to Neil, that's not sustainable. We need to find a better way of doing it. So I came up with the idea of writing a book. And I think that was probably the single most important thing we ever did. I know some people call it marketing. You can call it marketing, but for us, it was more about education. One of the things that we found was that everybody was asking us the same question. How does it work? What are the pros and what are the cons?
Right.
And we thought, well, you know what? If we're already answering this question one-on-one, that means there's going to be thousands of other people who have exactly the same question. Why don't we just put the answers into a book? And at that point, we had done about 50 rent-to-own deals, and we had counseled hundreds of people on the topic. So it just made sense to do a brain dump of everything we knew and make it accessible, because at the time there were no other resources. The book that you're talking about that came out back in 2009, it was for investors. And it was a great book, but it didn't answer the questions of what is the journey like for the home buyer. And there were no Canadian trusted resources, so we thought, well, heck, if there isn't one, why don't we be that resource? So we wrote a book. It's about 100 pages, paperback, available on Amazon.ca. And to be honest, I think that has been really the number one way a lot of people have been finding us, is this resource somehow gets passed around between real estate agents, mortgage agents. Someone somehow finds our book and hands it to somebody, and then we get a phone call saying, I got your book, I bought your book, I want to learn more, I want to see how this is done.
No kidding. So someone has to go pay for the book to learn how to do business with you?
Not necessarily.
Unless they got lucky enough for someone to give it to them.
Sometimes they buy it, sometimes they gift it. You don't even need to. You can even rent it on Amazon. You can do
You can do that?
Yeah, you can
Never heard of that.
Yeah, if you have a Kindle, apparently, yeah, there's you can borrow it under a Kindle sign out or something.
Wow.
So it's
So like a
accessible for
library.
free.
Okay.
And that was our goal. Our goal was really to create a resource that was accessible to anybody from all walks of life to learn about the ins and outs of rent own. So they come to the equation more empowered, more educated, versus coming into it with a potential of being a victim. We were tired of hearing those victim stories. We were tired of trying to rescue rent owns gone bad. And we thought, read the book, know how it works, know which questions to ask and what answers to listen for. You have no excuses.
What's the book called? I probably need some copies.
A Rent-to-Own Essential Guide for Homebuyers.
I should probably order some copies for the office. Because again, not everyone can qualify. I actually would like to know from a mortgage agent how many people that call can actually qualify for a mortgage.
Well, there was a statistic, I think the Canadian Mortgage Association put out a few years ago, and they said something like 100,000 Canadians got disqualified for a mortgage. And that number seems, at first glance, it seems kind of high, but think about all the people that aren't even bothering to go into the bank because they already know they have tarnished credit, they've gone through a consumer proposal, a bankruptcy, and what's the use? Why bother going to a bank? I know I won't be qualified. So I feel that number is much higher than 100,000 that the research shows. And I believe that number is going to continue to grow. There's a lot of people who got affected by COVID. They lost employment. They had to dip into their savings, and they can't now. They don't have the closing costs to get that home, and the real estate values continue to climb, and they're afraid that they're going to get priced out. What do? Rent to own is the answer for a lot of those people. So we're here to help.
So when someone has the book, I'll buy the book eventually, like when we're done this call.
I'll give you an autographed copy.
Oh, thank you.
Free of charge. My pleasure.
I will need multiple. I'm not asking for multiple copies, but I think my team needs some copies in case we need to hand these out to folks who are in those situations we think we can help. Rent to own would help. So there's like a phone. There's like a phone number there and a website, or.
Yeah, information on how to reach us. Absolutely.
Okay. Do you want to share it in case anyone listening needs this?
Sure. The website is rethinkrenting.com.
And it's your business. Your website's busy, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we've had in the last 3 months nearly 800 applicants for our rent-to-own program.
How many qualify?
That number is a little bit lower, and the qualification process is lengthy. So it's not like, from the day that you apply, we'll have a yes or no answer.
Right.
Like I said, it's a 4-step process.
Yeah.
So the qualification takes a little while, and we'll only know maybe a month later whether or not they can actually go through.
Right. How much is that as automated versus?
I would say about 40%.
That's pretty good.
But
As a mortgage person, they would love that.
That's an investment in of itself too.
Do you want to share?
We're not done with that investment. When we're done, I'll let you know.
Yeah, because I know, and another time ago, you're sharing automation's not easy, but it's gotta happen, but it is often painful to get there.
And again, like any business process, I don't think it's a set it and forget it, which I was hoping it would be, but I got the rude awakening that it's not. It's just ongoing, and it just is here to stay. It's going to be a mainstay as part of our business practices.
Right, like those grocery shopping robots that we were you're sharing about.
That's right. Yeah, you don't just build it and walk away from it. You're always going to have to improve, enhance, upgrade, and that's exactly what we're doing behind the scenes.
Always tweaking done. Like if you're marketers, you're always tweaking.
You're testing, you're trying, you're experimenting, and the world around you isn't standing still either. So, what was working last month isn't necessarily going to work 6 months from now. So you always have to keep adapting as well. So you're not necessarily tweaking in trying something new. Sometimes you're tweaking to adapt to what's happening in the market around you.
So you mentioned market. How has the market changed since you started? Do you think because of affordability being so poor, there's more people applying? Or is this just, it's maybe, because we're seeing it in the news more often now, it seems. People investing in rental companies in the U.S. I think it was something even mentioned by our federal party leaders, where they believe one of them suggested this could be the way into home ownership for some.
Well, I'm glad to hear that our federal government is using the words rent to own.
Yeah.
What I do question is their definition of it and their intentions for how it's truly going to solve some of the challenges home buyers are having.
Yeah. Because you still have challenges. We'll get to that.
Yeah, and to your question, how has the market changed? It has changed a lot, and I can honestly say, if rent to own is not done right, it's not going to solve the affordability problem. And in fact, it has never, based on how other rent to own models have been working, I've never seen it to solve an affordability issue. We do things differently, and we started off that way from the beginning. That was one of the things, you asked me earlier, what were some of the things you did differently to change up your model? One of the things that we did differently was to also leave money on the table, meaning that we help the home buyers in the rent-to-own process build up equity so that they can ultimately get into home ownership by buying a property that's a little bit below market value. And that purchase price is locked in at the beginning. So if the property goes up in value by $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 over and above the price that we locked in for them at the beginning, that's their equity. And that's also their affordability. And most rent-owns, sadly, don't operate that way. And that's why it doesn't solve the affordability challenge unless there's an equity buildup. Right. And that's what we account for. And that's what we did back, in the good old days in 2009. Because although it seems that real estate prices are going up and this affordability issue is plaguing us, in 2009, 2010, 2011, home buyers had exactly the same problem. They couldn't afford to get into home ownership, and salaries were not going up as high as real estate values were. So over the last 12 years, we've been basically doing
longer. I think last 30 years probably.
Well, but we've been doing this for 12 years. Yeah. So in our little 12-year history of doing this, we've always been solving the affordability issue. We've always been doing that through our rent-to-own process. So I don't think that's ever going to go away. I don't think our federal government is going to solve that problem just by talking about rent-to-own. I like that they're thinking in those terms, but execution is really where it's at. And that takes time to perfect.
Did you happen to listen to my episode with Daniel Dubois, who's one of the owners of Life at Key? You have to check it out.
I'll have to check it out, yeah.
Because their business models is almost like the easiest way to explain it is basically fractional rent-to-own. So they actually take large, they'll take a large percentage of condo units in a building and basically kind of rent to own them, essentially, in case you're looking to upsize. Upsize. Yeah, because he actually shared that they're actually looking at buying single-family duplex as well. So if they're willing to come to that level, then you should be willing to go to their level.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. I know who I'm calling after this podcast.
Life at Key. Maybe we can get together for our golf game. Yeah, Daniel Dubois, fascinating guy. Also, someone trying to change the world. Win-win-win. So you guys would get along. So we talked about front end, because again, the stuff that you discussed was not shared in any educational program or book I read. Even the books that I read for investors on how to generate leads for tenants, because. Actually, who taught you how to do that? Did anyone teach you that marketing strategy? Start with a book?
No.
You just wrote an FAQ, a 100-page FAQ.
Our goal was to really help homebuyers access the information without needing us to call them back, because our phone kept ringing and everybody wanted information, and we didn't want to short circuit those conversations, but we had to, because there's only so many hours in a day, and we had small kids, and we were in our corporate world taking the GO train to and from downtown.
800 applicants in a month. Oh, mercy.
Yeah, there was a lot to juggle, so we thought, well, what's the most efficient way for us to distill our information and make it accessible to people 24/7? Well, thank God for Amazon.
Thank God.
And then we thought, well, we've got this platform, Amazon. Let's put a book on there, and hopefully it'll make a difference to a few people.